In this video, I will be reviewing the epidemiology of COVID-19, how this virus spreads. And this infection is primarily spread by respiratory secretions. Close contacts can inhale droplets associated with coughing, or the droplets can land on surfaces where they can survive for hours up to 3 days. Droplets usually cannot project beyond 2 meters or 6 feet. The contribution of asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic patients is under investigation. We should point out there are several reports of super spreaders. One of the most notorious examples is case 31 from South Korea. This 35-year-old Chinese woman traveled from Wuhan, China to Daegu, South Korea, where she visited a megachurch twice, as well as a hospital, and while febrile, ate at a buffet before she was diagnosed. Tracing determined that she had come in contact with 1,160 people. The virus can also be found in stool, but it is difficult to culture, and no cases of transmission by this route have been reported. To date, perinatal transmission has not been observed. Tracing studies reveal that an infected host only infect 2 to 2.5 others. This number is termed R sub 0, and this virus is one of the most highly infectious agents. However, measles with an R sub 0 of 10 is more infectious. The majority of cases are acquired by close contact with a symptomatic person. 1 to 5% of close contacts develop the disease. 80 to 85% of infections are contracted within the family, called family clusters. Other settings have included the megachurch in South Korea with over 1,200 cases, cruise ships, sporting events, and an entire Italian community. In the early phase of the epidemic in both China and Italy, a large portion of nosocomial transmissions occurred through contacts between clinicians and visitors with no or mild symptoms of COVID-19. Healthcare givers must beware and remember Dr. Sisi. I will be discussing how caregivers can protect themselves in the fourth video. When it comes to who is infected, this virus is an equal opportunity promoter. Everyone appears to be equally susceptible. Every age, including young children who may have mild symptoms and be interpreted as having another febrile illness. Males and females are infected with nearly the same frequency. Our understanding of how the virus infects humans described in the first video is supported by the studies of viral counts in the nasopharynx and throat over time. Soon after being infected, before symptoms as well as during the first 24 or 48 hours of symptoms, the counts are very high, and patients are most infectious at those times. Some individuals shed virus for over 2 weeks. The outbreak began as a point source in the Hunan live animal fish market, and the majority of cases were among market workers. However, within 10 days, the disease rapidly spread person to person to those who had not been in the market, demonstrating early on that this virus was very infectious. These maps document the rapid spread throughout China. Each 10-day interval documents spread outward from the city of Wuhan, where the market was located, into the entire Hubei province and progressively into other eastern provinces. The infection quickly spread throughout the world as a consequence of Chinese citizens traveling to Europe, the U.S., and Australia. As shown on this map from the Center for Systems Science Engineering at Johns Hopkins, as of March 23rd, there have been 360,000 confirmed cases and 16,000 deaths, a death rate of 4.3%. Here are the epidemic curves for Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, China, and all of the European countries, including Italy and Spain, as well as the curve for the United States. Note the nearly flat curve for Singapore, pale blue, where rapid testing, contact tracing, and isolation and quarantines were instituted quickly. Also notice that the number of cases has leveled off in China, orange curve, and South Korea, pale blue curve. Finally, note the steep curve for the U.S. in red, and the large number of cases now in Italy, black curve, and Spain, dark blue curve. Here is a U.S. map, also from the Center for Systems Science and Engineering. The size of the circle correlates with the number of cases. As of March 23rd, New York City has the most cases at 10,674, and Seattle is a distant second with 1/10 of the cases at 1041. Followed by Chicago with 805, New Orleans with 451, Los Angeles with 409, and Miami with 267. Because I practice in Florida, I closely followed the early outbreak. As you can see, cases were showing up everywhere in Florida, concentrating in the southeast, in Fort Lauderdale and the Miami areas. The epidemic curve on the right is obeying an exponential curve fit that shows the infected cases are doubling every 1.8 days. For the entire U.S., the doubling time is approximately 2.5 days. As of February 25th, the cases outside China have exceeded those within China. To summarize the content of this video, transmission is by droplets and contamination of surfaces. Rapid spread is person to person, predominantly in families, and less commonly spread in large gatherings and on cruise ships. The R sub 0 is 2 to 2.5. The epidemic began as a point source outbreak in a live animal fish market in Hunan, China. As of March 23rd, the cases have rapidly increased, and now there are 367,000 confirmed cases worldwide. Many countries are now experiencing exponential epidemic curves. Testing, case finding, and isolation, as well as quarantining, are failing in most of our healthcare systems, with the exceptions of China, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, and South Korea.